Picture the following. You need support from an executive, but we're not talking about any executive here. This person is super inflexible. They have 0% flexibility in terms of the rules, the criteria, or whatever it is in terms of acceding to your demands. In other words, you just can't make them bend. But at the end of the day, you need to make them bend, either because you need a favor or because you need their formal assistance with something. So that's the crux of the question. How do you make an inflexible executive become flexible? Let's take a look at how. So this is our task. This is our glorious purpose. We have to convert an executive that is very, very strict by nature. Maybe it's just how they deal with life. Very logical, maybe they're part of a control function, or maybe they're just rigid with you in specific because they don't like you. Or there may be a variety of other reasons why they're so inflexible. But here's the key. Although this is hard, this is not impossible. There are ways to make them soften up a little bit and to really persuade them and get them to drop all of those rules and all of those criteria and just be persuaded human to human. In particular, we're going to take a look at 3 key tips to achieve this. The first technique is to not take no for an answer. And this sounds aggressive, but I mean it in the polite way. What I mean is the following. If you put things in terms of yes or no, are you going to support this project or no? Are you going to assign an FTE or no? Are you going to commit budget or no? It's very easy, well, to just get a no in terms of an answer. However, if you put things in terms of what can be done, they have to give you something. You can think of this as an open-ended question, sure, but more than that, it's always assuming that there's something that can be done. At the end of the day, you don't take no for an answer. Now, here's a good trick to use. Even if you have to minimize what you accept, you just want to get in there. This is a persuasion technique known as the foot in the door technique. You just want to get your foot in the door somehow, even if it is just a little toe, because then later on, you can expand how much the door is open. You can just put your foot in there and force it somewhat. But the first step is always to get the foot in the door. So this is the technique that we're leveraging. Even if you're accepting a small commitment, just get a commitment. Because people with very strict rules will try to tell you, no, this can't be done. I can't do anything. I can't commit anything. And what you're trying to do is flip that paradigm and say, hey, surely there's something that can be done, even if it's very little. And then after you get that small thing, you escalate that commitment. But the key here is not to be aggressive. You don't want to be up in their face and saying, hey, you need to do something. No, very politely saying, hey, I'm very sorry, but I can't take no for an answer. I'm sure that something can be done, even if it's a small thing. And you politely persist in terms of what can be done. The second technique is a perfect segue to the first one, and it's a persuasion technique called escalation of commitment. And it's kind of self-explanatory. That is, once you get them to do something for you, you just ask more and more, slowly. And they'll commit more and more resources, more and more time, and they won't even realize it. You've probably heard of the story of the frog in the boiling water. It's very known in particular in terms of personal development and habits. But here's the key. If you put a frog in boiling water, it realizes and it's going to jump out. So when the change is immediate, they're going to notice. However, if you put the frog in lukewarm water and then you slowly turn up the temperature, they won't realize it, but then they're going to end up boiled and, well, die unless they have some kind of super protective skin. And that's exactly what you want to do with this type of executive. You ask for a small commitment and then you slowly escalate it without them even realizing it. Again, it's the foot in the door technique. You just put your foot in the door one way or another, and then you slowly wiggle and you open up more room. So an example would be someone that says that they don't want to be involved in a project, and you say, hey, just be in the meeting for 5 minutes and that's it, and listen. And they say, okay. The next week you say, hey, can you stay for 5 minutes and give your opinion on something? And they may say, okay. Then the next time you say, hey, could you be in 2 meetings or could you be in 1 meeting for 10 minutes? Now here's the key. There's a cognitive bias or a cognitive characteristic, I guess, which is called consistency. And consistency bias works the following way. Once you get yourself to do something, you're more likely to continue doing it because, well, you don't want to contradict yourself. We don't want to contradict our self-image, but also our previous commitments. So if I told you that I'm going to be in that meeting for 5 minutes, it's very unlikely that next week I'm going to say, oh, I can't do it. So what happens is, once you just get them in the meeting, or once you just get them to commit someone, or once you just get them to sign off on something, they're more likely to repeat that in the future. And it's precisely what you want to leverage. You just want to get in there, and then you slowly escalate what you ask of them, and they are more likely to do it. Naturally, it's not always going to work, but you would be amazed at how often it actually works. In our lives, we all have things that we keep on doing just because we did it once. You've probably had a situation where you give a ride to a friend of yours, maybe when you were younger in college. Now what happens is, once you give them a ride once, they're more likely to ask for it again, and then they're more likely likely to ask for it every single day or every single week, and then you just realize it after a couple of months that you're driving this person to work or to college every single day and you don't even realize how you got into this mess. That's exactly what we want to take advantage of. Then, the third technique is to ask for their opinion or to ask about the details of how they would get involved. There's a principle in psychology called implementation intention. It states the following: when you ask someone about the details of implementing something, they're much more likely to do it than if you just ask them yes or no. For example, there was a study done with voting, where they would ask one group, will you vote, yes or no? And they would ask the other group, how will you vote? Will you take the bus? Will you go on foot? What pen will you use? And so on. And unsurprisingly, the group who were asked about the details of how to vote ended up voting a lot more. And this is a principle that is killer in sales, negotiations, and persuasion, which is, once you ask the person how they will do something, they're much more likely to do it because they visualize it in their mind. And also, they take ownership because they think, I'm the one who is giving an opinion. I'm making a plan on how to do it. And they're more likely to do it if they come up with a plan rather than you telling them what to do. So in our example, if you want someone to participate in a meeting, don't tell them, I need you to be in the meeting, or to give an opinion, or to be there for 5 minutes. Instead, ask them, how would you be in the meeting? What would you be willing to do? Would you be willing to listen? Would you be willing to vote on a decision? Would you be willing to give your opinion on something? And once they tell you what they're willing to do, then you can ask for a bit more. But what matters is that it comes from them and not you. Because remember, they will take ownership of what they're willing to do. And also, once they've pictured in their mind how they're going to do something, they're much more likely to do it. So these are 3 very simple but very effective techniques to really get someone inflexible to bend a little bit. First, find a way to get in there. Ask for a commitment, doesn't matter how small it is. Then, find a way to ramp up that commitment. You may not get where you want, but you will get something for sure. And finally, make it a point to ask them, how would you do it, instead of forcing something on them? Because if they're the ones that come up with the idea, they're much more likely to follow through on it. Naturally, this isn't going to work with every single executive. It all depends on the persistence, on your personal relationship, on what they're actually willing to accept, and how far you're willing to go. And also, how much courage you have in using these tools. So look, you're not going to convince every single inflexible executive. This is a hard situation, but you are going to increase the quantity of times that you can actually persuade them. And that's pretty good already. If you enjoyed the content in the video, make sure to browse the channel for more negotiation and persuasion techniques, and naturally, like and subscribe if you want to be notified of more content like this. Thank you so much for watching.